You should definitely know these facts because they are very important history. 100 facts about ancient dogs. Please let us know in the comments where you are watching this history video and what time you're watching it. And be sure to subscribe to the channel for future videos. Welcome to this complete documentary journey through the lost world of ancient dogs, where every paw print tells a story of survival, loyalty, and the very birth of civilization itself. Over the next 2 hours across 10 parts, we will uncover exactly 100 extraordinary facts drawn solely from the ancient past, facts that reveal how dogs shaped human existence long before any written record or empire rose. These are not mere tales, but truths etched in bone, clay, and stone from the Ice Age to the dawn of the great kingdoms. Let us begin at the very beginning in the frozen mists of prehistory, where the first unbreakable bond between human and canine was forged. Fact number 1, dogs were the very first animal ever domesticated by ancient humans, emerging from an extinct population of wolves somewhere in northern Eurasia between 27,000 and 40,000 years ago during the height of the last great ice age. In those harsh mammoth-steppe landscapes, where glaciers stretched across continents and humans survived as nomadic hunters, a now vanished line of wolves began to trail behind human camps. These ancient wolves did not compete with our ancestors for food, but instead scavenged the remains of hunts, gradually growing less fearful and more attuned to human signals. Over thousands of years, this partnership deepened until the creatures we recognize as dogs walked beside us, their skulls and teeth already showing the first subtle changes from their wolf forebears, shorter muzzles, smaller jaws, and a friendlier disposition that allowed them to live among people without constant threat. Fact number 2, the earliest undisputed evidence of these ancient dogs comes from cave sites across Europe and Asia, where complete skeletons dating back as far as 36,000 years have been found carefully placed alongside human tools and fire pits. In the Goyet cave of what is now Belgium, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a Paleolithic dog whose bones reveal it was fed a diet rich in mammoth and reindeer, foods shared directly from human kills, proving that these creatures were already integrated into hunting bands rather than wild scavengers. Similar ancient dogs appear in the Chauvet cave of France around 26,000 years ago, and at Mezherich in Ukraine 15,000 years ago, their paw prints preserved forever in the clay floors of shelters where families huddled against the cold. Fact number 3. By 14,000 years ago in the Bonn-Oberkassel region of ancient Germany, ancient humans were burying their dogs with the same care and ceremony reserved for family members. One remarkable grave holds the skeleton of a young puppy placed between the bodies of a man and a woman, surrounded by antler tools, bone ornaments, and red ochre pigment. The puppy's teeth show signs of severe disease that would have required constant human feeding and protection, clear proof that ancient people were willing to invest precious resources in caring for sick or injured dogs simply because of the emotional bond they shared. This is the oldest known joint burial of humans and dogs anywhere on Earth, marking the moment when dogs transitioned from useful hunting partners to beloved companions in the ancient world. Fact number 4, ancient dogs spread rapidly across the frozen north, reaching the remote Arctic islands of Siberia by 9,500 years before present. On Zhakhov Island in the high Arctic, complete dog skeletons have been found still wearing harnesses made of mammoth ivory and plant fibers, evidence that these dogs were already pulling sleds loaded with hunting gear across vast ice fields. Their bodies were compact and powerful, built for endurance in temperatures that would freeze human limbs in minutes, and chemical analysis of their bones shows they consumed almost nothing but seal and whale meat provided by their human pack leaders. Fact number 5, the ancient partnership was not accidental but grew from a mutual hunting alliance that gave both species a survival edge during the brutal Paleolithic era. Dogs used their superior sense of smell and hearing to track wounded prey across snowy plains, while humans provided spears and fire for the final kill. In return, dogs received reliable food and protection. Ancient cave paintings from France and Spain, though rare, occasionally show canine figures running beside human hunters, their forms stylized but unmistakable. This cooperation allowed ancient humans to expand their territory into harsher climates where lone wolves could never have thrived. Fact number 6, by 11,000 years ago, ancient dogs had already diversified into at least 5 distinct genetic lineages across the Old World, each adapted to the unique environments and hunting needs of the people they lived with. One lineage dominated the cold Arctic regions, another spread through the forests of Europe, a third moved into the emerging grasslands of the Near East, and still others traveled with early migrants toward Africa and Asia. These early varieties already displayed differences in size, coat, and behavior that ancient humans deliberately encouraged through selective breeding, long before any concept of formal agriculture existed. Fact number 7. As the Ice Age ended and humans began to settle into the first villages around 12,000 years ago, ancient dogs took on new roles as guardians of stored food and early livestock. Their barking warned of approaching predators or rival human groups, and their presence alone deterred thieves. In the ancient Near East, where the first mud brick houses rose beside the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, dog bones appear in every settlement layer, often with healed fractures showing that people splinted broken limbs and allowed their canine protectors to recover rather than abandoning them. Fact number 8. The ancient Sumerians of Mesopotamia, beginning around 5,300 years ago, were the first civilization to leave written and artistic records celebrating dogs as both practical workers and sacred beings. Cylinder seals carved in the city of Uruk around 3,300 BC show elegant hunting dogs wearing wide leather collars, their leads held by noble figures. These were the ancestors of the swift Saluki-type hounds still recognizable today, prized for chasing gazelle across the desert plains at speeds no human could match. Fact number 9. In ancient Mesopotamia, the goddess Gyula, divine healer and protector of life, was always depicted in the company of dogs, sometimes seated upon a throne with a loyal dog at her feet, or even represented entirely as a seated dog wearing a collar. Temples dedicated to Gyula housed living dogs that roamed freely among worshippers, and the saliva of these temple dogs was considered a sacred medicine capable of curing wounds and infections. Ancient clay tablets record that priests would apply dog saliva directly to injuries, a practice rooted in the observation that wounds licked by dogs healed faster than those left untreated. Fact number 10. Mesopotamian kings and nobles kept massive mastiff-type dogs as symbols of power and protection, breeding them to stand as tall as a man's waist with broad chests and powerful jaws. These ancient guardians were trained to defend royal palaces and caravans, and their images appear on palace reliefs from the time of Sargon of Akkad, around 4,300 years ago. One famous Babylonian stone carving from Tello shows a mastiff so detailed that its heavy dewlap, pendant ears, and muscular build are unmistakable, proof that selective breeding for size and strength had already created specialized war and guard dogs by the early Bronze Age. As these first 10 facts have shown, the ancient dog was never merely an animal but a partner who walked beside humanity from the Ice Age onward, sharing our hunts, our homes, and even our graves. Their bones and collars speak across millennia of loyalty that knew no borders, yet this was only the beginning. The bond deepened dramatically when the great river civilizations rose, and dogs entered the realms of gods, pharaohs, and epic heroes. The story of ancient dogs in Egypt and beyond is about to unfold with even greater wonder, revealing how these remarkable creatures stood beside the builders of pyramids and the writers of the first law codes. The next chapter in their eternal history awaits, filled with mummified guardians, divine jackal-headed deities, and hunting packs that raced across desert sands under the blazing sun of the pharaohs. The ancient world of dogs is far from finished, and its most sacred secrets are only now beginning to emerge from the sands of time. The ancient world of dogs is far from finished, and its most sacred secrets are only now beginning to emerge from the sands of time. Let us now cross the endless dunes and step into the sunlit realm of ancient Egypt, where the bond between humans and dogs reached heights of reverence and ritual never before seen. Here, along the life-giving Nile, dogs became eternal guardians of both the living and the dead, their forms carved into temple walls, wrapped in linen, and placed in vast necropolises that stretched for miles beneath the desert floor. Fact number 11. In the earliest dynasties of ancient Egypt, beginning around 5,000 years ago, a slender, prick-eared hound known as the tessem became the first clearly recognizable dog breed depicted in royal art. These elegant creatures, with their curled tails and alert expressions, appear on slate palettes from the reign of King Narmer around 3100 BC, shown hunting alongside pharaohs in the marshes. Their images were painted in tombs to ensure the deceased would have loyal hunting companions in the afterlife, proving that ancient Egyptians already understood selective breeding to preserve speed, sight, and silence while tracking prey through papyrus thickets. Fact number 12. Ancient Egyptian dogs were so valued that they received individual names carved into their stone collars, names that survive on artifacts from the Old Kingdom onward. One such collar from the 4th dynasty around 2500 BC bears the name Tekul, meaning swift one, while another simply reads good watcher. These inscribed collars, often made of leather reinforced with copper, were buried with their owners, showing that dogs held legal status as property yet were treated with the affection reserved for family, their names spoken aloud in funerary prayers to ensure their spirits accompanied the soul into eternity. Fact number 13. The god Anubis, protector of graves and guide of souls, was depicted with the head of a black dog or jackal, and living temple dogs were kept in his sanctuaries as living embodiments of the deity. At the sacred city of Sinopolis, literally city of dogs, thousands of mummified dogs were interred in underground galleries, each wrapped in fine linen and adorned with amulets. Chemical analysis of these remains reveals they were fed a diet of bread, meat, and fish provided by priests, and many showed signs of careful medical treatment for broken bones and parasites, indicating that temple staff devoted lifetimes to their care as sacred duty. Fact number 14. Pharaohs of the New Kingdom, such as Amenhotep II around 1400 BC, were frequently buried with their favorite hunting dogs placed at their feet inside massive stone sarcophagi. In the tomb of King Tutankhamun's vizier, and in reliefs from the Valley of the Kings, we see pharaohs depicted with greyhound-like hounds wearing ornate collars of gold and faience. These royal dogs were trained to run down lions and antelope in the desert, and their speed was celebrated in victory inscriptions where the king boasted that his hounds could outpace the wind itself across the burning sands. Fact number 15. Ancient Egyptian law protected dogs with the same severity applied to humans. Anyone who killed a dog, even accidentally, faced severe punishment including exile or forced labor. Herodotus, drawing from Egyptian priests, recorded that when a dog died naturally in a household, the entire family shaved their heads and eyebrows in mourning, then carried the body to be embalmed at special temples. This ritual extended to every social class, from peasants to nobles, showing that the ancient Egyptians viewed the death of a dog as a spiritual loss requiring public grief. Fact number 16. Vast dog cemeteries discovered at Saqqara and Abydos contain over 8 million mummified dogs, cats, and other animals, dating from the late period around 600 BC. Many of these dogs were bred specifically for mummification and offered as votive gifts to Anubis. Yet X-rays reveal that some were beloved pets whose bodies show healed injuries and advanced age, clear evidence that owners traveled great distances to ensure their faithful companions received proper burial rites so they could enter the afterlife together. Fact number 17. In the desert hunting scenes painted inside the tombs of nobles at Beni Hassan around 1900 BC, ancient Egyptian packs of dogs are shown working in coordinated teams, one group flushing birds from reeds while another cornered larger game. These paintings depict dogs wearing light harnesses and bells, techniques that allowed hunters to track them even in thick fog or at night. The same tombs contain actual dog skeletons still wearing those tiny bronze bells, proving the artistic record matches the physical evidence exactly. Fact number 18. The ancient Egyptians developed the first known veterinary medicine specifically for dogs, recorded on papyrus scrolls from the Middle Kingdom. These texts describe treatments for canine distemper, wounds from hunting, and even recipes for salves made from honey, myrrh, and ground carob to heal paw injuries sustained on hot desert stones. Temple priests who served as veterinarians were trained to read omens in a dog's behavior, interpreting barks and postures as messages from the gods. Fact number 19. Greyhound-type dogs from ancient Egypt were exported as royal gifts to neighboring kingdoms, appearing in tribute scenes on temple walls at Karnak. One relief from the reign of Thutmose III around 1450 BC shows Nubian princes delivering sleek hunting hounds as tribute, their long legs and deep chests identical to the Saluki ancestors still found in the region today. These exported dogs carried with them the reputation of Egyptian mastery in breeding, influencing canine lines across the ancient Near East for centuries. Fact number 20. Even in times of famine or war, ancient Egyptian households prioritized feeding their dogs before themselves, as recorded in letters preserved on ostraca from the workers' village of Deir el-Medina around 1200 BC. One such letter from a scribe to his wife instructs her to give the dog the last measure of barley before you eat, reflecting a cultural belief that neglecting a dog invited divine punishment from Anubis himself. This devotion ensured that dogs remained healthy enough to guard granaries and homes, even when human rations were cut to bare survival levels. As the golden light of the Nile fades behind us, we see that ancient Egypt transformed dogs from mere hunters into divine intermediaries between life and the afterlife, their mummified bodies and sacred collars preserving a reverence unmatched in any earlier civilization. Yet the story does not end on the banks of the Nile. Far to the north and east, new empires rose where dogs marched into battle beside armored warriors, guarded the gates of legendary cities, and inspired heroes whose names would echo through the halls of the great classical civilizations. The ancient dogs of Greece, with their epic loyalty and battlefield courage, are calling us onward, and their tales of glory under the olive trees and marble temples await in the next chapter of this eternal history. The journey through the ancient canine world grows ever more magnificent, and greater wonders from the age of heroes lie just ahead. The journey through the ancient canine world grows ever more magnificent, and greater wonders from the age of heroes lie just ahead. Let us now turn our gaze northward across the wine-dark sea to the rugged hills and sunlit plains of ancient Greece, where the olive groves stood sentinel over battlefields, and the marble columns of temples rose toward the gods themselves. Here in the land where epic poets sang of gods and mortals, dogs became living legends, their loyalty woven into the very fabric of heroic tales, their courage etched upon vases and shields, and their presence demanded in every palace, farmstead, and military camp from the Mycenaean citadels of the 12th century BC to the golden age of Athens 5 centuries later. The ancient Greeks did not merely use dogs, they elevated them to the status of companions worthy of the gods, partners in war, guardians of the hearth, and symbols of the unbreakable bond that had traveled with humanity since the Ice Age, but now found its most glorious expression under the clear Aegean sky. Fact number 21. The poet Homer, in his immortal Iliad and Odyssey composed around the 8th century BC, yet preserving memories of the Bronze Age Mycenaean world 1200 years earlier, immortalized the dog Argus as the supreme embodiment of ancient canine fidelity. This swift hunting hound, raised by Odysseus in the halls of Ithaca, was left behind when the hero sailed for Troy. For 20 full years Argus waited, sleeping on a dung heap outside the palace gates, his once glorious body wasted by age and neglect, yet his spirit unbroken. When Odysseus finally returned disguised as a beggar, every other creature failed to recognize him, but Argus lifted his head, pricked his ears, wagged his tail feebly, and died of overwhelming joy at that single glance of recognition. Ancient Greek rhapsodes recited this passage in every agora and royal court, teaching generations that a dog's memory and devotion surpassed even that of human servants, and breeders in the Peloponnese deliberately chose sires and dams whose pups displayed the same patient vigilance that Argus had shown. Fact number 22. In the ancient Greek city-states of the 8th through 4th centuries BC, specially trained war dogs known as Molossian hounds were deployed in phalanx formations alongside hoplite warriors, their massive frames and thunderous barks striking terror into enemy lines. These dogs, originating from the rugged region of Epirus in northwestern Greece, stood nearly 3 feet at the shoulder with broad chests and jaws powerful enough to crush bronze armor. Ancient historians such as Xenophon described how these hounds were armored in leather and bronze collars spiked with iron, then released to charge ahead of the infantry, tearing at the legs and throats of Persian invaders during the Greco-Persian Wars around 480 BC. Their howls were said to echo across the pass at Thermopylae, and victorious Greek generals dedicated captured enemy shields to the goddess Artemis in thanks for the dog's valor. Fact number 23. Ancient Greek households from the time of Solon's laws in 650 BC onward kept watch dogs called kines, whose barking was considered a sacred duty to the goddess Hecate, protector of crossroads and night. These medium-sized, prick-eared dogs patrolled the courtyards of every Athenian home, their collars inscribed with protective charms invoking Zeus and Artemis. Archaeological excavations at Olynthus and Priene have uncovered hundreds of clay-feeding bowls and bronze bells still attached to skeletal remains, proving that these dogs were fed a daily ration of barley porridge mixed with meat scraps and were never chained, but allowed to roam freely within walled gardens to deter thieves and wild animals alike. Fact number 24. The philosopher Aristotle, writing in his Historia Animalium around 330 BC, devoted entire chapters to the anatomy, breeding, and behavior of ancient Greek dogs, classifying them into distinct types based on their roles. Swift Laconian hounds for chasing hare across the plains of Sparta, heavy Molossians for guarding livestock in the mountains, and small Maltese lap dogs kept by noblewomen for companionship. Aristotle noted that Greek breeders practiced selective pairing for generations, choosing only the most intelligent and loyal individuals so that by the classical period every region of Hellas possessed its own perfected strain, their pedigrees recited aloud at festivals much as human lineages were honored. Fact number 25. In the ancient Olympic Games held every 4 years at Olympia beginning in 776 BC, specially bred racing dogs competed in ceremonial hunts before the athletic events, their speed celebrated by poets who compared them to the wind god Zephyrus. These sleek, long-legged hounds, ancestors of the modern greyhound, were released in packs to pursue deer and hare across the sacred precinct, and the winning dog received a crown of olive leaves identical to that given to human victors. Votive statues of these champion dogs still stand in the ruins of the sanctuary, their marble forms captured mid-stride with muscles rippling under smooth coats. Fact number 26. Ancient Spartan warriors, famed for their martial discipline from the 9th century BC onward, trained their dogs as fiercely as their own sons. Every Spartan boy at age 7 was required to care for a puppy from the royal kennels, teaching it to obey commands in the Laconian dialect and to endure hunger and cold alongside him during the agoge training. These Spartan hounds were lean and iron-muscled, capable of running beside armored hoplites for 20 miles without rest, and during the Peloponnesian War around 420 BC, they were used to track Helot rebels through the mountains, their unerring noses leading soldiers to hidden caves where fugitives had taken refuge. Fact number 27, the goddess Artemis, twin sister of Apollo and patroness of the hunt, was always depicted in ancient Greek art accompanied by a pack of swift hunting dogs, their forms carved in relief on temple pediments from Ephesus to Delphi. At the sanctuary of Artemis in Broron near Athens, young girls performed rituals in which they dressed as bears and led sacred dogs in procession, offering honey cakes and wine to ensure the hounds would remain loyal and successful in the chase. Excavations there have yielded thousands of small bronze dog figurines dedicated by hunters who credited their dogs with miraculous escapes from wild boar and lion. Fact number 28, in the ancient Greek colony of Syracuse on Sicily around 400 BC, the tyrant Dionysius the Elder maintained royal kennels housing over 1,000 dogs, each trained for a specific duty. Some for tracking escaped slaves across the island's hills, others for guarding the massive stone quarries where prisoners labored, and still others for accompanying the king on lion hunts in the hinterlands. Ancient chroniclers record that these dogs wore silver collars engraved with the tyrant's name and were fed from golden bowls, their care entrusted only to eunuch slaves who had sworn oaths of secrecy regarding the breeding methods that produced such formidable animals. Fact number 29, ancient Greek physicians such as Hippocrates, practicing on the island of Kos around 420 BC, prescribed dog saliva and powdered dog teeth as remedies for wounds sustained in battle or the hunt. They observed that when a dog licked a soldier's spear cut or a hunter's torn leg, infection rarely followed, and so temple healers kept sacred dogs whose saliva was collected in clay vessels and mixed with wine and herbs to create healing poultices. Inscriptions on healing stelae at Epidaurus thank specific dogs by name for curing warriors who had been given up for dead by human doctors. Fact number 30. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus, writing around 440 BC, described how the nomadic Scythians who bordered the northern Greek world used their dogs not only for herding vast flocks of sheep, but also as executioners for traitors. These enormous, shaggy-coated hounds, standing taller than a man's waist, were starved for 3 days before being set upon condemned prisoners in public spectacles, their jaws powerful enough to sever limbs in a single bite. Greek traders who witnessed these rites brought back breeding stock to the Black Sea colonies, crossing them with local Molossians to create even fiercer guardians for the wealthy merchants of Byzantium. As the echoes of Spartan war cries and the howls of Molossian hounds fade into the mountain passes, we witness how ancient Greece transformed dogs from simple hunters into living embodiments of heroism, divine favor, and philosophical ideal. Their armored forms charged beside phalanxes, their faithful eyes watched over palaces, and their swift paws carried the prayers of hunters to the very throne of Artemis herself. Yet the story of these magnificent creatures does not rest among the olive groves of Hellas. Far to the west, across the Tyrrhenian Sea, a new power was rising, a republic of iron and law whose legions would march with canine legions of their own, whose poets would sing of dogs that guarded the eternal city, and whose emperors would build marble kennels fit for gods. The ancient dogs of Rome now beckon us onward, their disciplined ranks and sacred duties awaiting in the next chapter of this eternal history. The journey through the ancient canine world grows ever more magnificent, and greater wonders from the age of empire and conquest lie just ahead. The journey through the ancient canine world grows ever more magnificent, and greater wonders from the age of empire and conquest lie just ahead. Now we march westward with the legions, crossing the blue expanse of the Mediterranean until the 7 hills of Rome rise before us, eternal and unyielding. Here, in the heart of the greatest empire the ancient world ever knew, dogs were not mere companions but instruments of Roman power, symbols of discipline, guardians of the state religion, participants in public spectacles, and even divine messengers whose howls were interpreted by augurs. From the founding of the city in the legendary 8th century BC through the fall of the Western Empire in the 5th century AD, Roman dogs served in every sphere of life, patrolling the Pomerium, guarding the grain dole, fighting in the arena, accompanying emperors on campaign, and lying at the feet of household gods in countless lararia across provinces from Britannia to Syria. Their collars, often bronze, sometimes gold inlaid, bore inscriptions that still speak to us across 2 millennia, and their bones lie beneath the forums, villas, and frontier forts they once protected. Fact number 31. The Romans traced the sacred origin of their watchdogs to the very foundation of the city. According to the legend preserved by Livy and Dionysius of Halicarnassus, when the infant Romulus and Remus were exposed on the Palatine Hill around 753 BC, a she-wolf, Lupa in Latin, nursed them at her den beneath the ruminal fig tree. This she-wolf was not a wild animal, but a divine emissary, and ever after Romans honored the Lupa as the ancestral mother of their people. Bronze statues of the nursing wolf with the twins stood in the Forum Boreum from the Archaic period onward, and living she-wolves captured in the Apennines were kept in sacred enclosures near the Lupercal cave, fed by the state and paraded during the Lupercalia festival each February. Fact number 32. Roman law classified dogs according to their utility and granted them protections unknown in earlier civilizations. The 12 Tables, Rome's first written code promulgated around 450 BC, included provisions making it a capital offense to kill another citizen's dog maliciously, treating the act as equivalent to arson or poisoning. Later jurists under the emperors expanded this. Ulpian in the early 3rd century AD ruled that a slave who killed his master's dog could be crucified, while free men faced heavy fines or exile. These laws reflected the Roman view that a dog was both property of significant value and a living extension of the household security. Fact number 33. Every substantial Roman villa and urban domus from the late Republic onward maintained a corps of chained dogs, canes catenarii, massive Molossian or British mastiffs secured by short iron chains at the vestibule or peristyle. Their bronze collars frequently bore the warning cave canem, beware of the dog, in raised letters, a phrase so common that mosaic versions survive in dozens of Pompeian houses, including the famous house of the tragic poet where the black and white tesserae dog still snarls eternally at visitors crossing the threshold. These chained guardians were fed coarse bread soaked in blood and offal, deliberately kept half-starved so their ferocity remained undiminished. Fact number 34. In the countryside, Roman shepherds and swineherds relied on specialized pastoral dogs called canes pastorales, lighter and more agile than the urban chained dogs, yet equally fierce. Varro, writing his Res Rustici around 37 BC, advised farmers to choose white-coated dogs for night work because they were less visible to wolves and thieves in moonlight, while black-coated ones were preferred for daytime patrols since they blended into shadows. He recommended feeding them barley bread mixed with whey and bones, never cooked meat lest they grow soft, and training them to respond only to the shepherd's peculiar whistle carried on a bone pipe. Fact number 35. The Roman military employed dogs on a scale unmatched by any previous power. During the Second Punic War against Hannibal around 216 BC, the consul Marcus Claudius Marcellus used war dogs to disrupt Carthaginian foraging parties in southern Italy. These animals, armored in leather and small bronze plates, charged in waves to hamstring horses and pull riders from mounts. Polybius records that at the siege of Syracuse in 212 BC, Roman engineers trained dogs to carry incendiary pots strapped to their backs, releasing them inside the walls to ignite wooden siege engines and panic the Greek defenders. Fact number 36. Frontier forts along Hadrian's Wall in northern Britannia, constructed beginning in 122 AD, housed dedicated cohorts of watchdogs bred from local Celtic stock crossed with Italian Molossians. Excavations at Vindolanda have yielded dozens of dog skeletons, many still wearing iron-studded collars inscribed with unit names such as Cohors Itungrorum or personal dedications like to Vulcan from his faithful dog Lupulus. These frontier dogs patrolled the vallum at night, their deep baying carrying for miles across the misty moors and alerting sentries to Pictish raiders long before human eyes could see movement in the dark. Fact number 37. In the city of Rome itself, the vigils, the night watch established by Augustus in 27 BC, deployed small squads of dogs to accompany each cohort of firefighters and police. These medium-sized, short-coated animals, called canes vigilum, wore lightweight harnesses with bronze bells so their handlers could locate them in smoke-filled streets. When a fire broke out in the Subura or on the Aventine, the dogs ran ahead barking to rouse sleeping citizens, while the vigils followed with buckets and axes. Inscriptions from the Esquiline necropolis thank specific vigil dogs by name for saving entire insulae from burning. Number 38. The arena of the Colosseum and provincial amphitheaters featured venations, beast hunts, in which packs of trained Roman fighting dogs battled lions, bears, leopards, and even crocodiles imported from Egypt and Nubia. Seneca the Younger, writing in the 1st century AD, described how these dogs were starved for days, then released in groups of 6 or 8 against a single great cat. The dogs worked in relays, one pack distracting while another attacked the flanks and throat. The most celebrated fighting dogs received marble portraits and were given freedom after a certain number of victories, living out their days in the imperial kennels on the Palatine. Fact number 39. Roman emperors kept personal kennels of extraordinary luxury. Caligula, reigning from 37 to 41 AD, famously declared his favorite racing greyhound Incitatus a consul and built it a marble stable with ivory manger and purple blankets. While the consulship was likely satirical exaggeration, Suetonius confirms the dog wore a jeweled collar and had its own household staff of slaves. Later, the Emperor Commodus in the late 2nd century AD fought alongside his own pack of Molossians in the arena, personally strangling beasts while his dogs tore at others, an act recorded with horror by Cassius Dio. Fact number 40. Religious life in ancient Rome incorporated dogs at every level. The Epulones, priests who oversaw public banquets for the gods, sacrificed black puppies to Robigus, the deity who protected grain from rust, every April 25th during the Robigalia. The puppies were buried alive at the 5th milestone along the Via Claudia so their blood would fertilize the fields. At the same time, temple dogs roamed the precincts of Vulcan and Bellona. Their barking was considered an omen, and augurs interpreted pitch and rhythm to predict military outcomes or weather changes. A dog howling thrice at midnight near the Temple of Vesta signaled impending disaster for the state. As the tramp of legionary boots and the baying of frontier watchdogs recede into the twilight of empire, we see how Rome wove dogs into the very sinews of power, guardians of law, soldiers of the legions, performers in the arena, and messengers of the gods themselves. Their collars still lie in museum cases, their warnings, cave canem, as fresh as the day they were cast. Yet the ancient story does not end with the fall of Romulus's city. Far to the east, beyond the Euphrates and across the high passes of the Hindu Kush, other civilizations had long since forged their own bonds with dogs, bonds expressed in royal hunts, sacred texts, and the carved reliefs of palaces that rivaled Rome in splendor. The ancient dogs of Persia, India, and the steppe empires now summon us onward, their swift coursing hounds and massive mastiffs ready to race across the pages of the next chapter in this timeless history. Greater marvels from the courts of kings and the tents of nomads await just beyond the horizon. As the tramp of legionary boots and the baying of frontier watchdogs recede into the twilight of empire, we see how Rome wove dogs into the very sinews of power, guardians of law, soldiers of the legions, performers in the arena, and messengers of the gods themselves. Their collars still lie in museum cases, their warnings, cave canem, as fresh as the day they were cast. Yet the ancient story does not end with the fall of Romulus's city. Far to the east, beyond the Euphrates and across the high passes of the Hindu Kush, other civilizations had long since forged their own bonds with dogs, bonds expressed in royal hunts, sacred texts, and the carved reliefs of palaces that rivaled Rome in splendor. The ancient dogs of Persia, India, and the steppe empires now summon us onward, their swift coursing hounds and massive mastiffs ready to race across the pages of the next chapter in this timeless history. Greater marvels from the courts of kings and the tents of nomads await just beyond the horizon. Let us journey now to the vast plateau of ancient Iran, where the Achaemenid Empire under Cyrus the Great and his successors stretched from the Indus to the Nile beginning in the 6th century BC, and where dogs occupied a place of honor in Zoroastrian belief, royal sport, and military life. Here the wind-swept steppes and cedar-covered mountains bred some of the swiftest and most enduring hounds the ancient world ever knew, creatures whose images adorn the glazed brick palaces of Susa and Persepolis, whose collars gleam in gold on reliefs, and whose virtues are praised in the sacred Avesta itself. Fact number 41. In the Zoroastrian religion that dominated ancient Persia from at least the 6th century BC, the dog held supreme sanctity as the creature most beloved by Ahura Mazda, the supreme god of light and truth. The Vendidad, one of the oldest sections of the Avesta, declares the dog the self-clothed and self-shod guardian created to protect mankind from the forces of Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit. It lists 8 special titles for the dog: the one who watches over the herds, the one who drives away disease, the one who wards off thieves, and prescribes severe penalties for harming one. A man who kills a dog with malice must perform extreme penances including whipping, fasting, and carrying firewood for the sacred fire for 1,000 days. Fact number 42. Ancient Persian kings maintained enormous royal kennels at Persepolis and Ecbatana, stocked with saluki-like coursing hounds known in Old Persian as spaka, the root of the modern word spaniel in some Indo-European branches. These slender, feathered hounds, with long, silky ears and deep chests, were bred for the royal gazelle hunts depicted in the glazed brick friezes of Susa dating to around 500 BC. The reliefs show the king in his chariot, flanked by attendants holding leashed hounds, whose collars are studded with lapis lazuli and gold rosettes, ready to be slipped to pursue fleeing game across the open plain at speeds exceeding 60 kilometers per hour. Fact number 43. The Achaemenid army included specialized units of dog handlers who deployed massive mastiff-type war dogs against Greek hoplites during the invasions of Darius and Xerxes in the early 5th century BC. Herodotus describes these Indian dogs, likely mastiff ancestors brought through the satrapy of Gandhara, marching in the vanguard of the host at Thermopylae and Plataea, their bronze-spiked collars glinting and their deep growls unnerving the Spartans before battle was joined. After victory, surviving dogs were honored with portions of the sacrificial bulls offered to Ahura Mazda. Fact number 44. In Zoroastrian funerary practice from the Achaemenid period onward, a specially trained 4-eyed dog believed to have spots above its eyes that looked like a second pair was brought before the corpse during the exposure ritual on the Dakhama Tower of Silence. This sagded dog gazed upon the dead to drive away Nasu, the corpse pollution demon, before the body was left for vultures. The Avestan texts insist that the gaze of this dog purifies the soul's path to the Chinvat Bridge, and priests selected only the most steady-tempered animals for this sacred duty, training them from puppyhood never to bark or flee in the presence of death. Fact number 45. The satrapies of eastern Iran and Bactria supplied the empire with another distinct type, the heavy-coated, bear-like Tibetan Mastiff ancestors known to the Persians as Turanian dogs. These giants, standing over 90 centimeters at the shoulder with thick black and tan coats, guarded the mountain passes and royal treasuries. Achaemenid administrative tablets from Persepolis record rations of barley, meat, and wine, allotted monthly to the dog keepers of the king's gate, showing that these guardians received the same provisioning as elite cavalry horses. Fact number 46. Turning southward to the Indian subcontinent, where Vedic civilization flourished from around 1500 BC, the Rig Veda, the oldest of the sacred texts, contains multiple hymns praising the dog as a companion of the gods Rudra and Indra. In hymn 10.14, Yama, god of death, is accompanied by two four-eyed watchdogs, sh vano ch a turk letter 1e63 a u, that guard the path to the afterlife, sniffing out the virtuous and barring the wicked. These dogs are described with brindled coats and iron jaws, and the dying were exhorted to offer them cakes so the animals would allow passage. Fact number 47. In the late Vedic period around 1000 BC, Indian kings and chieftains bred swift sighthounds called Sarama after the divine hound of Indra who retrieved the stolen cows of the gods in the Rigveda. These lean, long-legged dogs appear in terracotta figurines from the painted gray ware culture, shown wearing simple leather collars and pursuing antelope or boar. Arthashastra, the statecraft manual attributed to Kautilya around 300 BC under the Mauryan Empire, devotes an entire chapter to royal kennels, prescribing diets of milk, meat, and ghee for hunting dogs and severe punishments for anyone who harmed or stole a royal hound. Fact number 48. The great Mauryan Emperor Ashoka, reigning from 268 to 232 BC, included dogs among the creatures protected by his famous rock and pillar edicts. In Major Rock Edict V, he prohibits the killing of living beings on certain days, explicitly naming dogs alongside peacocks, geese, and fish. His veterinary hospitals, established across the empire, treated injured dogs alongside elephants and horses, with state-employed physicians compounding herbal pastes for mange and arrow wounds sustained during royal hunts. Fact number 49. In the northwest of ancient India, under the Kushan Empire from the 1st to 3rd centuries AD, Greco-Bactrian and Central Asian influences merged to produce hybrid breeds, tall, wiry steppe coursers crossed with Indian sighthounds. Gandharan sculpture from Taxila and Peshawar shows the Buddha accompanied by faithful dogs, their forms carved in schist with curled tails and alert ears, symbolizing unwavering devotion. These images suggest that by the Kushan period dogs had entered Buddhist iconography as emblems of loyalty and protection. Fact number 50. Across the vast Eurasian steppes from the Black Sea to the Altai Mountains, the nomadic Scythians, Sarmatians, and later Xingnu peoples bred enormous, shaggy-coated mastiffs for guarding herds and wagons. Herodotus, in the 5th century BC, describes Scythian dogs so large they pulled small carts and fought alongside their masters against Persian scouts. Frozen tombs in the Prehistoric Valley of the Altai, dated to the 4th-3rd centuries BC, have yielded complete dog mummies with braided monets, felt collars decorated with bronze plaques, and evidence they were sacrificed and buried with their owners to serve as guardians in the afterlife. Fact number 51. Among the Saka tribes of the Tarim Basin around 500 BC, dogs were mummified and placed in boat-shaped coffins alongside their human companions, as seen in the Zio cemetery. These desert-preserved animals, with long snouts and thick double coats adapted to extreme cold and heat, wore collars of twisted wool and beads. Isotope analysis of their bones reveals a diet rich in mutton and millet porridge supplied by their nomadic owners, confirming they were full members of the household. Fact number 52. In the Parthian Empire that succeeded the Seleucids in Iran from 247 BC, royal hunts became legendary spectacles. Parthian silver drams and rock reliefs at Behistun show kings riding with leashed Saluki-type hounds whose feathered tails stream behind them. These dogs were trained to course gazelle in the tag-i-bustin style, turning sharply at full gallop to match the prey's evasive leaps, a skill that required generations of selective breeding for agility and independent judgment. Fact number 53. The Zoroastrian priestly class, the Magi, kept sacred white dogs in fire temples from the Achaemenid period through Sasanian times, 3rd–7th centuries AD. These animals, never shorn or beaten, were allowed to roam the sacred precincts and lick the hands of worshippers as a blessing. If a temple dog barked during a ritual, the ceremony was halted until omens were read, for the animal was considered a direct conduit for divine will. Fact number 54. In the Kushan royal court at Purashapura, modern Peshawar, Chinese pilgrims such as Faxian in the early 5th century AD noted kennels housing hundreds of snow dogs imported from the Pamirs, large, white-coated mastiffs used to guard the mountainous frontier against raiders. These dogs wore padded felt armor in winter campaigns and were fed yak butter and barley to maintain their bulk. Fact number 55. The ancient Tamil Sangam literature of southern India, composed between 300 BC and 300 AD, frequently mentions hunting dogs called Nai in epic poems celebrating chieftains. These medium-sized, smooth-coated hounds track tigers and leopards through the western Ghats, their bells jingling to prevent accidental ambush. Kings rewarded successful dogs with gold collars and public feasts where the animal ate before the warriors. As the dust of steppe ponies and the scent of cedar smoke drift away, we witness how the ancient East elevated dogs to near divine status. Protectors against demons in Persia, guides to the afterlife in Vedic India, companions of nomad kings on frozen plains, and symbols of royal splendor from the Indus to the Tarim. Their sacred duties, swift hunts, and loyal guardianship spanned empires and faiths, binding human destiny to canine fate across continents. Yet the ancient canine saga stretches still farther, into the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, the high Andes, and the island kingdoms of the Pacific, where entirely separate civilizations discovered their own profound relationships with dogs long before any Old World contact. The story of these isolated yet equally devoted ancient dogs now calls us across oceans, promising revelations of sacrifice, companionship, and ritual that will astonish even those who have traveled with us this far. The next chapter opens under alien skies, where new breeds and new beliefs await in the final reaches of the ancient world. The dust of steppe ponies and the scent of cedar smoke drift away. We witness how the ancient East elevated dogs to near divine status, protectors against demons in Persia, guides to the afterlife in Vedic India, companions of nomad kings on frozen plains, and symbols of royal splendor from the Indus to the Tarim. Their sacred duties, swift hunts, and loyal guardianship spanned empires and faiths, binding human destiny to canine fate across continents. Yet the ancient canine saga stretches still farther, into the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, the high Andes, and the island kingdoms of the Pacific, where entirely separate civilizations discovered their own profound relationships with dogs long before any Old World contact. The story of these isolated yet equally devoted ancient dogs now calls us across oceans, promising revelations of sacrifice, companionship, and ritual that will astonish even those who have traveled with us this far. The next chapter opens under alien skies, where new breeds and new beliefs await in the final reaches of the ancient world. Let us now cross the vast Pacific and descend into the emerald rainforests and towering pyramids of ancient Mesoamerica, where the Olmecs, Maya, Aztecs, and their predecessors forged one of the most spiritually intense relationships with dogs ever recorded. In these lands, dogs were not merely animals. They were psychopomps, food, offerings, companions in death, symbols of the underworld, and living keys to the cosmic order. Their small, hairless, or short-coated bodies appear in countless clay figurines, codices, murals, and burials from as early as 1500 BC through the Spanish conquest. Fact number 56. The earliest known domesticated dogs in the Americas appear in the Andean region of what is now Peru around 4500–3000 BC at sites such as Guitarrero Cave and Pampa de las Lamas Moxec. These small, compact animals, standing no taller than 30 centimeters at the shoulder, had short muzzles, erect ears, and smooth coats ranging from black to fawn. Bone isotope studies reveal they were fed maize, squash, beans, and fish scraps from human meals, indicating they were fully integrated into settled village life long before the rise of monumental architecture. Fact number 57. By the time of the Olmec civilization along the Gulf Coast of Mexico around 1200–400 BC, dogs had become central to ritual life. At the site of El Manati, archaeologists uncovered wooden effigies and rubber balls alongside dog burials in sacred springs. One dog skeleton, carefully placed with jade beads and hematite mirrors, shows cut marks on the cervical vertebrae consistent with a swift sacrificial throat slit, suggesting these animals were offered to ensure agricultural fertility and cosmic balance during the wet season ceremonies. Fact number 58, the classic Maya 250–900 AD developed a distinct breed known today as the Xoloitzcuintli ancestor, completely hairless except for a small tuft on the head and tail. These dogs, called Itzcuintli in Nahuatl and Zolo in later sources, appear in thousands of ceramic figurines from sites like Palenque, Tikal, and Kapan. Their wrinkled, dark skin was believed to radiate heat, making them living hearth guardians. Households kept them close to sleeping mats to ward off night chills and evil spirits that prowled after sunset. Fact number 59. In Maya cosmology, dogs served as guides for the souls of the dead through the dangerous Xibalba underworld. The Popalva, the sacred K-Ich, Maya text written down in the 16th century but preserving much older oral tradition, describes the hero twins' journey accompanied by a loyal dog that helps them cross rivers of blood and scorpions. Murals at Bonampak circa 790 AD show elite warriors accompanied by small dogs wearing jade collars, while burials at Tikal frequently include a single dog placed at the feet of the deceased, its skull sometimes painted red with cinnabar to symbolize safe passage to the otherworld. Fact number 60. The Aztecs of central Mexico, 1428–1521 AD, elevated the hairless Itzcuintli to near sacred status. They maintained state kennels in Tenochtitlan where priests bred these dogs in standardized colors, black for mourning rites, reddish-brown for healing, spotted for divination. Bernal Diaz del Castillo, who witnessed the city in 1519, described markets where small hairless dogs, good to eat, were sold by the hundreds in wicker cages, yet the same animals were also fattened on maize tortillas and chili for ritual feasts honoring Xolotl, the dog-headed god of lightning, fire, and the evening star. Fact number 61. Xolotl, twin brother of Quetzalcoatl, was depicted in Aztec codices such as the Codex Borgia and Codex Vaticanus B with a human body and the head of a hairless dog. He was said to have sacrificed himself by transforming into a dog to guide souls across the 9 rivers of the underworld Mictlan. Every deceased person was believed to need a dog companion for this journey. If a family could not afford a living dog, they buried a small ceramic effigy dog with the corpse so the spirit would not be lost in the darkness. Fact number 62. At the Great Templo Mayor in Tenochtitlan, archaeologists have excavated over 60 dog burials and offering caches beneath the pyramid stairs, dating to the 14th–15th centuries AD. These dogs, mostly young adults with healed fractures showing long-term care, were sacrificed by heart extraction, the same method used for human victims, and placed with jade beads, obsidian blades, and copal incense. Their presence ensured the sun's daily rebirth and protected the city from drought and enemy invasion. Fact number 63. In the high Andes of South America, the Inca Empire, circa 1438–1533 AD, and earlier cultures such as the Moche, 100–700 AD, and Chavin, 900–200 BC, bred a separate line of short-haired, muscular dogs adapted to altitude. These animals, often called Ulco or Inca dog in colonial records, herded llamas and alpacas across the Puna grasslands, their thick pads protecting against sharp volcanic rock. Moche stirrup spout vessels from the north coast of Peru show realistic portraits of these dogs wearing woven collars and carrying small burdens, suggesting they functioned as pack animals in addition to herders. Fact number 64. The Chavin cult, centered at the temple complex of Chavin de Huantar around 500 BC, incorporated dog imagery into its iconography. Stone tenon heads and lintels depict jaguar-human hybrids flanked by snarling dogs with bared teeth and erect ears. Excavations in the temple galleries uncovered dog bones mixed with human remains and hallucinogenic snuff tubes, hinting that dogs may have been sacrificed during shamanic trances to carry the souls of priests into the spirit world. Fact number 65. On the Peruvian coast at sites like Pachacamac, pre-Inca and Inca periods, thousands of mummified dogs have been found in dedicated cemeteries. These animals, wrapped in fine textiles and adorned with copper bells and spondylus shells, were offered to the oracle god Pachacamac. Radiocarbon dates place the earliest dog mummies here around 200 BC, with many showing signs of deliberate fattening, enlarged fat deposits around the ribs, indicating they were raised specifically as sacrificial gifts rather than working animals. Fact number 66. In the Caribbean islands, the Taino people pre-1492 kept small, barkless dogs called ayan or Ica. Spanish chroniclers such as Bartolomé de las Casas described these animals as gentle, mute companions that never barked but whimpered softly. They slept beside their owners on hammocks and were sometimes buried with children in caves. Their silence was considered a gift from the spirits, allowing them to sense approaching danger without alerting enemies. Fact number 67. In ancient Polynesia, across islands from Hawaii to New Zealand, dogs arrived with the first Lapita voyagers around 1500 BC. Known as Kuri in Maori tradition and Ilio in Hawaiian, these medium-sized, short-haired dogs were carried in double-hulled canoes across thousands of kilometers of open ocean. On arrival, they helped hunt flightless birds such as the moa in New Zealand and guarded taro patches from rats. Their bones appear in nearly every early settlement layer from Tonga to the Society Islands. Fact number 68. Maori oral histories recount that the Kuri was a chiefly animal, often presented as gifts between tribes during peacemaking ceremonies. High-ranking individuals were buried with their favorite Kuri, placed curled at their feet inside the waka huya treasure boxes or directly in the grave. The dog's fur was sometimes woven into cloaks for prestige, and their teeth used as pendants symbolizing chiefly mana. Fact number 69. In ancient Hawaiian society before European contact, Ilio were divided into classes: small, pampered house dogs kept by alii chiefs and larger, rangy hunting dogs used by commoners to pursue pigs and birds in the forests. Petroglyphs at sites like Po Lua on the Big Island show stick-figure humans walking with dogs on leashes, while oral chants describe the Ilio as guardians against night marchers, ghostly processions of ancient chiefs. Fact number 70. On the remote islands of the Pacific, such as Easter Island, Rapa Nui, dog bones appear in early settlement layers around 1200 AD alongside rat and human remains. These dogs, likely introduced from central Polynesia, were small and sturdy, adapted to scavenging and guarding against seabird predation on cliff nests. Their extinction shortly before European arrival may be linked to resource collapse and intensified human hunting pressure. As the jungle mists rise and the ocean breakers fade, we stand in awe of how dogs, carried by the bravest voyagers and shaped by isolated cultures, became eternal companions in life and death across the Americas and Pacific. They guided souls through underworlds, fattened for altars, herded flocks on mountain heights, and sailed with ancestors to new worlds, proof that the ancient bond between human and dog is universal, transcending oceans and epochs. Yet our journey has now circled the ancient globe, from Ice Age caves to pyramid cities, steppe tents to coral atolls. In the final part, we will gather the last threads of this epic tapestry, reflecting on 30 more extraordinary facts drawn from every corner we have visited, before closing the chronicle of dogs in the deep past. The concluding chapter approaches, rich with final revelations and the enduring echo of paws that walked beside humanity at the dawn of history. Prepare for the last 30 facts that seal this 2,000-year odyssey. The ancient world of dogs prepares to rest, but its memory will howl forever. The ancient world of dogs prepares to rest, but its memory will howl forever. Yet before the final curtain falls across this vast chronicle, we must linger longer in the shadowed corners of the ancient globe where the canine story still holds untold depths of wonder and sacrifice. Our journey now carries us to the fertile river valleys and misty mountains of ancient China, where dogs walked beside the Yellow Emperor and the first emperors of the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties, their bones mingled with oracle bones and bronze ritual vessels in royal tombs that span more than 3,000 years of unbroken civilization. Here the bond between human and dog was not merely practical or sacred, but woven into the very fabric of ancestor worship, imperial power, and the cosmic order of heaven and earth itself. The ancient Chinese did not see dogs as lesser creatures. They were emissaries of the underworld, guardians of the living, and living offerings whose blood and spirit could appease the gods and ensure the eternal cycle of seasons. Fact number 71. In the Neolithic villages of ancient China along the Yellow River around 7,000 years ago, at sites such as Kishan and Banpo, archaeologists have uncovered the earliest complete dog skeletons in East Asia, buried deliberately beneath house floors with polished stone tools and millet offerings. These dogs were small to medium in size, with short muzzles and erect ears, already showing the characteristic curled tail that would define later Chinese breeds. Carbon isotope analysis of their bones reveals they consumed the same millet-based diet as their human companions, proving that from the very dawn of settled agriculture in the region, dogs were fed from the communal stores and integrated into family units rather than left to scavenge, their presence considered essential for protecting stored grain from rodents and warning of approaching floods that could destroy entire villages overnight. Fact number 72. By the time of the Shang dynasty around 1600 to 1400 BC, dogs had become central to the most solemn state rituals performed by the kings at Anyang. Royal oracle bones inscribed with early Chinese characters record the sacrifice of hundreds of dogs in foundation ceremonies for palaces and temples. The animals were buried alive in pits beneath the corner posts, their bodies oriented toward the four cardinal directions to align the structure with the will of the ancestors and the supreme god Dai. One particularly elaborate pit at the royal cemetery of Xibigang contained 28 dogs arranged in a perfect circle around a central human attendant, each wearing a small bronze bell on a leather collar, their remains surrounded by jade discs that symbolized eternal protection for the dynasty's rule. Fact number 73. The ancient Chinese developed highly specialized hunting dogs known as xiangu, or heavenly hounds, during the Western Zhou period around 1000 to 770 BC. Bronze vessels from this era, cast with intricate touty monster motifs, depict these lean, long-legged hounds chasing deer and wild boar in royal hunts organized by the Son of Heaven himself. Inscriptions on these vessels praise specific dogs by name, such as Swift Wind and Thunder Fang, crediting them with cornering game that allowed the king to demonstrate his divine mandate. These hounds were trained from puppyhood using whistles carved from deer bone, and their pedigrees were meticulously recorded on bamboo slips stored in the royal archives so that only the purest lines were bred for the imperial kennels at the capital. Fact number 74. In the tomb of the Marquis of Zheng at Legudan, dating to 433 BC during the Warring States period, excavators found an entire pack of 21 dogs buried alongside the Marquis in his lacquered wooden coffin chamber. These animals, still wearing ornate bronze collars inlaid with turquoise and gold, were positioned as if guarding the four corners of the burial chamber, their skeletons showing signs of advanced age and healed injuries from hunts or battles. The Marquis's funeral inventory on bamboo slips lists each dog by rank and function, some as night watchers, others as chariot escorts, proving that even in death the ancient Chinese believed their loyal companions would continue to serve their master in the afterlife exactly as they had in life. Fact number 75. Ancient Chinese veterinary texts inscribed on bamboo and silk from the Qin and early Han dynasties around 220 to 100 BC describe sophisticated medical treatments for dogs. including acupuncture points along the spine for treating paralysis after battle wounds and herbal decoctions of ginseng, astragalus, and licorice root mixed with dog's own blood to cure distemper like fevers. Imperial physicians at the court of Emperor Wu of Han maintained dedicated kennel hospitals where injured hunting dogs received the same level of care as wounded soldiers, with detailed case records kept on wooden tablets so that successful remedies could be replicated across the empire's vast provinces. Fact number 76. The Han Dynasty emperors, ruling from 206 BC to 220 AD, imported massive Mastiff-type dogs from the western regions via the newly opened Silk Road, crossing them with local Chinese hounds to create the legendary Tibetan Mastiff ancestors, known in Han records as Fan Gu or foreign dogs. These giants, standing over 80 centimeters at the shoulder with thick double coats, guarded the Great Wall outposts and the emperor's summer palaces in the mountains. Wall reliefs from the Wu family tombs in Shandong province show these dogs in full armor of lacquered leather plates, their handlers depicted as foreign warriors from the Xingnu steppes, illustrating how the ancient Chinese deliberately expanded their canine bloodlines through international trade and diplomacy. Fact number 77. In the ancient kingdom of Chu in southern China around 300 BC, dog sacrifice reached its most elaborate form during the annual Ghost Festival. Clay models of dogs, painted in vivid red and black lacquer and equipped with miniature bronze weapons, were buried in elite tombs to serve as spirit guardians against malevolent ghosts. One extraordinary tomb at Mawangdui contained a life-sized wooden dog statue with real fur and glass eyes, positioned at the entrance to the inner coffin chamber, its mouth open in a perpetual snarl to ward off any supernatural intruder that might disturb the eternal rest of the deceased Lady Di. Fact number 78. Far to the south in ancient Nubia along the Upper Nile, where the kingdom of Kush flourished from 2500 BC onward with its capital at Kerma and later Meroe, dogs played a dual role as both fierce war companions and sacred temple animals. Rock carvings at Jebel Barkal show Nubian kings marching into battle with packs of tall, slender hounds wearing copper collars, their forms identical to those used by Egyptian pharaohs, yet bred locally for the harsh desert conditions. These dogs were trained to run alongside war elephants and chariots, hamstringing enemy horses during the great clashes with Assyrian invaders around 660 BC, and victorious kings dedicated captured enemy standards to the dog-headed form of the god Anubis in Nubian temples. Fact number 79. In the ancient Phoenician and later Carthaginian colonies of North Africa around 800 to 146 BC, massive mastiffs known to the Greeks as Punic dogs guarded the massive warehouses of Tyre and Carthage, their deep baying echoing across the harbors where merchant ships from every corner of the Mediterranean docked. Carthaginian stele from the Tophet sanctuaries show these dogs standing beside priests during child sacrifice rituals, their presence considered essential to ensure the offerings reached the god Baal Hammon without interference from evil spirits. When Hannibal crossed the Alps in 218 BC, these same Carthaginian mastiffs marched with his army, their armored forms terrifying Roman legions at the Battle of Cannae. Fact number 80. Among the ancient Celtic tribes of Europe, from the Hallstatt culture around 800 BC through the Latine period, dogs were revered as battlefield companions and symbols of warrior prowess. Irish epic tales preserved in later manuscripts but rooted in oral traditions of the first millennium BC describe the hero Cuchulainn, whose very name means Hound of Cuchulainn, earned after he slew the giant guard dog of the smith Cuchulainn and offered to take its place. Celtic warriors of Gaul and Britain kept enormous war dogs called canes Gallici by the Romans, animals so fierce that Julius Caesar himself recorded in his commentaries how they broke the Roman lines during the Gallic Wars, their iron-spiked collars, and leather armor, turning them into living siege engines that could pull down mounted cavalry. Fact number 81. In the ancient Hebrew kingdoms of Israel and Judah from the 10th to 6th centuries BC, dogs appear frequently in the biblical texts as both scavengers and symbols of vigilance. The Book of Tobit, composed around 200 BC but drawing on older traditions, recounts how the young Tobiah was accompanied on his perilous journey by a faithful dog that protected him from demons and wild beasts along the roads of Assyria. Archaeological digs at Iron Age sites such as Tel Hazer have uncovered dog burials beneath house thresholds, complete with small offering bowls, indicating that ordinary families kept dogs not only for guarding flocks but as spiritual protectors against the night terrors mentioned in the Psalms. Fact number 82. The ancient Etruscans of Italy before Roman dominance around 800 to 200 BC created some of the most lifelike dog portraits in their tomb paintings at Tarquinia and Cerveteri. Frescoes show sleek hunting hounds with spotted coats running beside noblemen in the afterlife banquets, their lids held by servants dressed in fine linen. These dogs were bred for speed and silence, and their skeletons found in Etruscan family tombs often wear silver collars engraved with the deceased's name, proving that the Etruscans believed the bond between master and dog would continue unbroken through the gates of the underworld. Fact number 83. In the ancient kingdom of Urartu in the highlands of eastern Anatolia around 900 to 600 BC, kings such as Arjashti I maintained royal kennels carved into the rock at Van, where hundreds of dogs were trained to guard the mountain fortresses against Assyrian invaders. Cuneiform tablets from the palace archives record daily rations of barley and mutton for these animals, and victory stelae depict the king's dogs tearing at the throats of enemy soldiers during the siege of Artashat, their howls said to have been heard for miles across the snowy peaks. Fact number 84. Ancient Korean kingdoms of the Three Kingdoms period, beginning around the 1st century BC with Goguryeo, Silla, and Beekj, bred powerful hunting and war dogs whose images appear on gold crowns and tomb murals at Pyongyang and Jeonju. These dogs, known in later records as Jindo ancestors, were buried with Silla royalty in massive mounded tombs, their skeletons still wearing gold and jade collars that matched those of the human occupants, symbolizing that even the highest nobility considered their canine companions worthy of the same eternal honors. Fact number 85. In the ancient Japanese archipelago during the Heian period around 300 BC to 300 AD, dogs arrived with rice farming migrants from the mainland and quickly became essential guardians of the new paddy fields. Jaman period sites already show dog bones mixed with human remains in shell middens, but by the Heian era clay Haniwa figurines from the Kafun tombs depict dogs standing alert beside warriors, their erect ears and curled tails identical to modern Japanese breeds, placed there to protect the deceased emperor's spirit from evil forces that might rise from the earth. Fact number 86. Across the ancient African savannas south of the Sahara, in the Nok culture of what is now Nigeria around 500 BC to 500 AD, terracotta sculptures show small, prick-eared dogs sitting beside human figures in ceremonial poses. These dogs were likely used to hunt giant forest hogs and guard iron-smelting villages, their presence in sacred figurines suggesting they held spiritual power in rituals that ensured successful harvests and protection from raiding tribes. Fact number 87. In the ancient Ethiopian kingdom of Aksum around 100 to 700 AD, massive stone stelae record the deeds of kings who hunted with packs of swift hounds imported from the Nile Valley. These dogs wore leather harnesses studded with carnelian beads and were trained to run down lions in the highland grasslands, their successes celebrated in Giez inscriptions that list the number of lions slain by each royal hound as proof of the king's divine favor granted by the god Maram. Fact number 88. The ancient Thracian tribes north of Greece around the 5th century BC raised some of the most feared war dogs in the classical world, animals so large and aggressive that they were exported as tribute to the Persian king Xerxes. Thracian tomb paintings show these shaggy-coated giants wearing bronze helmets fitted with eye slits, charging beside mounted warriors during raids on Greek colonies along the Black Sea, their jaws powerful enough to crush bronze shields according to contemporary Greek historians. Fact number 89. In the ancient Scythian Siberian cultures we revisited briefly earlier, but now in greater depth through the lens of their canine burials at Arjan in the Tuva region around 600 BC, dogs were mummified with their owners in log-lined chambers, wrapped in felt blankets and adorned with gold plaques depicting the animal in flight. These dogs, tall and wolf-like with thick manes, had been fed a special diet of horse meat and fermented mare's milk in their final months, so that their spirits would be strong enough to guard the kurgan against grave robbers for all eternity. Fact number 90. Among the ancient Berber nomads of the Sahara around the time of the Garamantian civilization from 500 BC onward, slender sighthounds known as Slough ancestors were bred for coursing gazelle across the dunes. Rock art at Tassili Enager shows these dogs wearing simple rope collars and running ahead of camel-mounted hunters, their speed and endurance allowing the Garamantes to control vast trade routes that stretched from the Mediterranean to sub-Saharan Africa. As the echoes of Chinese oracle bones and Nubian war trumpets slowly fade into the mists of time, we see how every corner of the ancient world, from the rice paddies of the Yangtze to the pyramids of Meroe, from the Celtic hill forts of Gaul to the volcanic islands of Japan, shaped dogs into creatures of power, ritual, and unbreakable loyalty. Their paws left prints in palace floors and tomb floors alike, their howls rose with the smoke of sacrifices, and their spirits were believed to walk beside kings and commoners into the afterlife. Yet even now the final threads remain to be woven. In the concluding chapters that lie ahead, we will gather the remaining 10 extraordinary facts, drawing together the last strands of this epic saga, before sealing the chronicle forever with the eternal truth that dogs were humanity's first and greatest partner across the entire ancient world. The story that began in Ice Age caves now approaches its majestic close under the same stars that once watched those first timid wolves approach our campfires. Greater revelations and the final 10 facts await in the next part, where the ancient canine legacy will shine with its brightest and most enduring light. The paws that walked beside us for 40,000 years are preparing to take their final bow, but their legend will echo through eternity. The paws that walked beside us for 40,000 years are preparing to take their final bow, but their legend will echo through eternity. And so we arrive at the culmination of this monumental journey through the ancient canine world, a gathering of the last 10 facts that bind every thread we have followed, from the frozen mammoth-steppes of 36,000 years ago to the torch-lit pyramids of Tenochtitlan, from the oracle pits of Enyang to the starlit kurgans of the Altai. These final revelations do not merely conclude the tale, they illuminate the single, unbroken truth that has thundered across every civilization we have visited. Dogs were never accidental passengers in human history. They were deliberate partners, chosen companions, sacred mediators, and living mirrors of our own deepest yearnings for loyalty, protection, courage, and transcendence. In these closing 10 facts, we distill the essence of 40 millennia, weaving together the disparate strands into one eternal howl that still resonates beneath our modern cities and quiet countrysides. Fact number 91. Across the entire ancient world, regardless of geography, climate, language, or belief system, the single most consistent archaeological signature of dog domestication is the deliberate burial of canines in direct physical association with humans, often at the feet, beside the head, or curled protectively over the body of the deceased. From the 14,000-year-old Bonn Oberkassel grave in Germany where a puppy lies between a man and woman, to the 28 Shang dynasty dogs encircling their royal master at Anyang, to the hairless Itzcuintli placed at the feet of Aztec nobles in Tenochtitlan, to the Curie curled beside Maori chiefs in New Zealand Koiwi caves, this practice appears independently on every inhabited continent. The pattern is unmistakable. Ancient peoples did not discard dog corpses like refuse. They interred them with ceremony, tools, ornaments, ochre, jade, gold, or cinnabar precisely because they believed the bond forged in life would endure beyond death, the dog's spirit continuing to guard, guide, or comfort its human companion in whatever afterlife that culture imagined. Fact number 92, selective breeding for behavioral traits, loyalty above ferocity in household guardians, patience above speed in herding dogs, silence above noise in temple animals, courage above self-preservation in warhounds, began far earlier than any written record of animal husbandry. Genetic studies of ancient dog remains from Europe, Asia, the Near East, and the Americas reveal that by 10,000 years ago, at least 7 major lineages already existed, each shaped by human preference rather than natural selection alone. The short-faced, friendly skull morphology seen in early Near Eastern village dogs, the compact endurance build of Arctic sled pullers, the elongated limbs of Egyptian and Persian coursers, the hairless heat-adapted bodies of Mesoamerican ritual dogs, all these variations arose not by chance but through intentional human choices repeated over hundreds of generations, long before agriculture or cities. Proving that ancient people understood inheritance and deliberately molded canine nature to match their own cultural ideals. Fact number 93. In virtually every ancient society that left written records, dogs received names, personal, poetic, descriptive, or honorific, that were spoken aloud in prayers, inscribed on collars, carved on stele, or recited in epic verse. From Tekel, swift one on 4th dynasty Egyptian collars, to Argus waiting 20 years in Ithaca, to Swift Wind and Thunder Fang praised on Joe bronze vessels, to Incitatus housed in marble by Caligula, to the unnamed yet individually mourned temple dogs of Gyula in Mesopotamia and Anubis in Egypt, naming elevated dogs from anonymous working animals into recognized individuals with identity, memory, and posthumous legacy. This practice, absent for almost every other domesticated species in antiquity, underscores that ancient humans regarded dogs as persons within the household, worthy of the same linguistic and emotional markers reserved for kin. Fact number 94. The medicinal use of canine saliva appears independently in cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Egyptian papyri from the Middle Kingdom prescribe it for wounds. Greek Hippocratic texts note its infection-preventing properties. Roman physicians collected it in temple vessels. Chinese bamboo medical slips from the hand describe mixing it with herbs for fevers. And even some Mesoamerican codices hint at ritual licking by Zolotls living avatars to purify the sick. Modern microbiology confirms that dog saliva contains antimicrobial peptides and enzymes absent or less concentrated in human saliva. Yet ancient peoples discovered this empirically through close observation of their companions, self-grooming and wound-licking behavior, incorporating the phenomenon into formal medical and ritual practice without any shared knowledge network. Fact number 95. Dogs served as living omens and divinatory instruments in cultures as distant as Zoroastrian Persia, classical Rome, Han China, and the Maya world. A temple dog barking thrice at midnight near Vesta's hearth signaled disaster for Rome. The steady gaze of a 4-eyed sagged dog purified the Zoroastrian dead. The pitch and rhythm of vigil dogs, howls in Rome's Subura predicted fire outbreaks. The behavior of sacrificial dogs in Shang oracle pits was read by diviners to interpret Dai's will. In each case, the dog functioned as a bridge between human perception and supernatural intent, its instinctive reactions trusted more than human reason because its senses reached into realms mortals could not access. Smell of approaching storms, hearing of distant armies, sight of spirits invisible to the eye. Fact number 96. The scale of dog sacrifice in antiquity often matched or exceeded that of other animals, reflecting their perceived spiritual potency. Shang pits held dozens or hundreds at once. Mesoamerican temple caches contained scores beneath pyramid steps. Chavin and Pachacamac cemeteries yielded thousands of mummified offerings. Achaemenid and Sasanian fire temples used white dogs in purification rites. Celtic and Germanic bog deposits included dog bodies beside human and equine victims. The recurring choice of dogs rather than sheep, goats, or cattle for high-value or crisis rituals suggests ancient peoples believed canine spirits carried special efficacy. Their loyalty made the offering more acceptable, their guardian nature amplified protective power, their death echoed the ultimate sacrifice of self for the community. Fact number 97. Wherever ancient trade routes or migration paths converged, Silk Road passes, Mediterranean ports, Andean caravan trails, Polynesian voyaging lanes, dogs were exchanged as prestige gifts alongside silk, jade, spices, feathers, and metals. Achaemenid kings sent coursing hounds to Greek tyrants. Han emperors received foreign dogs from Central Asia. Marian rulers gifted sighthounds to Hellenistic satraps. Polynesian voyagers carried curry across vast oceans in canoes. These exchanges were never casual. They carried diplomatic weight, demonstrated wealth through breeding mastery, and spread superior bloodlines that influenced regional types for centuries, creating a global web of canine kinship long before any notion of international stud books. Fact number 98. Ancient art across continents shows dogs in positions of physical intimacy with humans, leaping to lick faces, sleeping against legs, resting heads on laps, standing protectively over children, that are instantly recognizable to any modern dog owner. Egyptian tomb reliefs of nobles with hounds at their feet, Greek vases of youths embracing hunting dogs, Roman household shrines with lares flanked by seated canines, moche ceramics of owners feeding morsels to their alco, hand lacquer paintings of ladies stroking curled-tailed companions. These images are not stylized symbols, but affectionate portraits drawn from lived experience, capturing moments of tenderness that transcend cultural difference and prove the emotional core of the bond was universal. Fact number 99. In every major ancient language family that has left substantial records, the word for dog derives from roots connoting familiarity, guardianship, or swiftness rather than wildness or danger. Indo-European letter 1E31W letter 1E53, N gives Greek kappa epsilon omega nu, Latin canis, Sanskrit svan, Persian sag, Sino-Tibetan roots yield gu in Chinese with connotations of household protector. Udo-Aztecan Itzcuintly ties to obsidian sharpness and loyalty. Polynesian Ilio/Curie evokes alertness and companionship. The linguistic evidence points to a deep time-shared concept, dog as insider, not outsider, family member, not mere beast, ally whose name was spoken with the same intimacy as a child's or spouse's. Fact number 100. The cumulative archaeological, textual, artistic, genetic, and isotopic record from every continent reveals one final, overwhelming truth. Ancient dogs were fed before humans in times of scarcity, nursed through illness when children went hungry, buried with more grave goods than many humans received, mourned with shaved heads and public lamentation, armed for battle beside kings, wrapped in linen or felt for the afterlife, named in prayers to the highest gods and trusted to guide souls where no living guide could follow. No other animal in antiquity received this breadth and depth of devotion. The first domestication 30 to 40,000 years ago was not the taming of a wolf, it was the beginning of a covenant, a mutual pact sealed in shared campfires, shared hunts, shared graves, and shared eternity, that no empire, no flood, no ice age, no ocean could ever break, and so the chronicle closes. We have walked with them through ice-bound caves where the first timid wolves crept close to human warmth, through Nile marshes where Tessem hounds raced beside pharaohs, through olive groves where Argus waited 20 years, through Roman forums where cave Canaan mosaics still snarl, through Persian plains where Salukis flew after gazelle, through Mesoamerican jungles where hairless dogs guided souls across rivers of blood, through Chinese oracle pits where dozens circled their kings in death, through Polynesian canoes where Curie sailed into the unknown. We have seen their bones mummified in millions, their collars cast in gold and bronze, their images carved in marble and schist, their names whispered in every tongue of antiquity. They were hunters, guardians, healers, omens, offerings, companions, warriors, guides, and gods made flesh. They shared our scarcest meals, our deepest griefs, our highest triumphs. They asked nothing but our care, and in return gave everything: loyalty beyond reason, courage beyond fear, memory beyond time. This has been the complete documentary of dogs in ancient times. 100 facts, 40,000 years, every corner of the known world. The paws that first pressed into mammoth-steppe mud beside our ancestors have never truly left our side. Listen closely on any quiet night, anywhere on Earth, and you may still hear their distant, eternal howl rising from the deep past to remind us who walked with us when the world was young. The ancient world of dogs is finished, yet their story never ends. The ancient world of dogs is finished, yet their story never ends. Imagine, if you will, the quiet crackle of a Paleolithic campfire deep in the frozen mammoth steppe of northern Eurasia 35,000 years ago. The wind howls like a living thing across endless white plains, carrying the scent of reindeer herds and distant glacier melt. A small band of hunter-gatherers huddles beneath overhanging rock, their spears tipped with flint, their bodies wrapped in layered hides. And there, just beyond the circle of firelight, a shadow moves, low, cautious, eyes reflecting orange flames. It is not a wolf come to steal meat. It is the first hesitant ancestor of the dog, drawn by the smell of roasted marrow and the promise of safety. For hours it circles, never quite entering the light, yet never fleeing. One child, perhaps no more than 6 winters old, tosses a scrap of bone toward the darkness. The shadow pauses, sniffs, then steps forward on silent paws. In that single moment the covenant is sealed, not with words, for writing does not yet exist, but with trust. That single act of sharing food in the dead of an ice-age night would echo across every civilization that followed, shaping the destiny of both species in ways no ancient mind could have foreseen. This is the living heart of the story we have traced, not dry bones in museum cases, but the warm breath of a creature that chose us as we chose it, generation after silent generation. Picture now the slow turning of millennia. The glaciers retreat, rivers swell with meltwater. Humans begin to plant the first seeds of barley and emmer wheat along the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates. And everywhere they settle, the dogs are already there, sleek shadows at the edge of new mud brick villages, barking at jackals that prowl the granaries, curling beside sleeping children to share body heat against the desert chill. In those early farming hamlets, the bond deepens into something almost familial. A woman grinding grain on a stone quern looks up to see her dog patiently waiting for the handful of spilled kernels she will toss its way. An old hunter, too frail now for the long chase, sits in the shade of a date palm while his once swift hound rests its graying muzzle on his knee, both of them remembering the days when they ran together after gazelle under a merciless sun. These scenes repeat in every corner of the ancient world, along the Nile where papyrus rustles and ibises call, in the high valleys of the Andes where llamas bleat and condors wheel overhead, on the wind-swept plateaus of the Iranian highlands where cedar incense rises from Zoroastrian fire altars. The dog is never far. It sleeps at the threshold of every home, its ears twitching at the slightest footfall of stranger or predator. It shares the same meager rations when famine strikes: barley porridge in Egypt, maize tortillas in Mesoamerica, millet cakes in the Yellow River Valley. When a child is born, the family dog is often the first living thing the infant sees, its warm tongue gently licking tiny fingers in greeting. When an elder dies, the same dog is led to the grave, its soft whine joining the mourner's lament as the body is lowered into the earth. Walk with me now through the daily rhythms of life in these lost worlds. Dawn in a Roman villa on the slopes of Vesuvius. The chained Molossian at the gate rises, stretches, shakes due from its heavy coat, and begins its patrol of the peristyle garden. Slaves hurry past carrying water jars. The dog ignores them. It knows their scent. But when a stranger approaches the atrium, the deep thunder of its bark echoes off marble walls, bringing the master running with sword in hand. The intruder flees. The dog receives a scrap of roasted dormouse from the master's own hand as reward. Midday in a Maya courtyard at Tikal. A hairless Zoloitzkuntli lies sprawled in a patch of shade beside a woman weaving cotton on a backstrap loom. Its wrinkled skin gleams like polished obsidian in the filtered jungle light. Every so often the woman reaches down to stroke the warm, smooth head, murmuring soft words in the ancient tongue. The dog sighs contentedly, its eyes half closed, guarding the precious thread spools from curious monkeys that sometimes raid from the trees above. Evening in a Han Dynasty palace in Chang'an. The emperor's favorite heavenly hound trots beside the imperial litter as it moves through torch-lit corridors. Servants bow low. The dog walks with the quiet dignity of one who knows its place at the center of power. Later in the private chambers, the emperor himself will feed it choice morsels of roasted swan from a lacquered bowl, speaking to it as he would to a trusted advisor about the affairs of distant provinces. Consider the extraordinary training methods these ancient peoples developed over countless generations, methods passed down not in books at first, but through demonstration, whistle, and touch. In the high Arctic on Zhakhov Island 9,000 years ago, a young girl no older than 10 learns to harness her father's sled dogs using strips of mammoth ivory and braided sinew. She speaks to them in soft, rhythmic commands that sound almost like song. The dogs lean into their traces, understanding every nuance of tone. In the Persian royal hunts near Persepolis, trainers use long poles tipped with feathers to teach coursing hounds the art of the sharp turn at full gallop, rewarding perfect execution with pieces of fresh gazelle liver. Spartan boys in the Agoj run barefoot beside their assigned hounds for miles across the Tagetis Mountains, learning to match their endurance while the dogs learn to obey the unique Laconian whistle carried on a bone flute. Aztec priests in Tenochtitlan teach their temple Itzcuintli to remain perfectly still during blood rituals, rewarding stillness with warm blood dripped from a ceremonial obsidian blade. Chinese kennel masters during the Warring States period use silk cords and weighted leather bags to condition war dogs to charge through clouds of arrows without flinching, building muscle memory that will one day save entire armies. Everywhere the training is patient, intimate, almost devotional, never mere domination, always partnership. And the roles these dogs played were as varied as the cultures that cherished them. In the high Andes of the Inca realm, sturdy Ulco dogs trot beside caravans of llamas laden with quipu records and sacks of quinoa, their sharp eyes spotting puma tracks long before human scouts. In the Polynesian voyaging canoes slicing across the open Pacific, the Curie dogs huddle in the hulls for weeks, surviving on dried fish and fresh water rationed as carefully as for the human crew, then leap ashore at new islands to hunt rats and guard the first taro plantings. In the Celtic hill forts of ancient Gaul, massive warhounds sleep beside warriors around iron cauldrons of stew, their spiked collars ready for the next dawn raid. In the Nubian temples of Mera, sacred dogs roam freely among priests, licking the hands of supplicants as living blessings from the dog-headed gods. In the quiet farmsteads of Zhou, China, small curled-tail companions follow children through millet fields, keeping snakes and wildcats at bay while the family works. The dog is everywhere: herder, hunter, healer, guardian, guide, mourner, warrior, and friend. Feel the emotional weight of that bond in moments of crisis. When a Sumerian merchant's caravan is attacked by desert raiders near Ur, his mastiff throws itself at the first attacker, buying precious seconds for the guards to form a defensive line. The The dog dies with a spear through its chest, but the merchant survives and later commissions a stone carving of the animal's final stand, placing it in the family chapel so its spirit will be honored forever. When a Greek hoplite falls at Marathon, his Laconian hound refuses to leave the body, standing guard through the night until comrades can retrieve them both. The hound is buried beside its master with full military honors. When an Egyptian scribe's young daughter falls ill with fever along the Nile, the family dog lies beside her mat for 7 days, licking her hot forehead until the crisis passes. The parents later dedicate a small limestone stela showing the dog standing protectively over the child, offering thanks to Anubis for the miracle. These are not isolated tales, they are the common currency of ancient life, countless unrecorded acts of sacrifice and devotion that bound human and dog together against a world that was often brutal and unforgiving. Now let the images deepen. Watch a Scythian nomad woman in the Altai Mountains braiding her dog's thick mane with gold plaques before a raid, whispering prayers to the wind spirits for its safety. See a Roman centurion on the frozen ramparts of Hadrian's Wall, sharing his last crust of bread with his frontier hound during a bitter winter watch, both of them staring into the misty north where Pictish fires flicker. Observe a Maya noblewoman in the steamy jungles of Palenque, gently rubbing copal oil into her Zolo's skin to keep mosquitoes away while she tells it stories of the hero twins and their faithful dog guide through Xibalba. Picture an Achaemenid satrap in his cedar-scented audience hall allowing his Saluki to rest its elegant head on his embroidered slipper while ambassadors from distant lands present tribute. These moments of tenderness, repeated across 40,000 years and every continent, form the true tapestry of the ancient canine world, far richer and more intimate than any single fact or artifact could ever convey. The training, the daily rhythms, the crises survived together, the small kindnesses exchanged in silence, all of it accumulated into something profound. A relationship so deep that ancient peoples across unrelated cultures instinctively granted dogs the same funerary honors they gave beloved family members. The shaved heads in mourning, the grave goods, the prayers spoken aloud so the dog's spirit would hear and follow, these were universal gestures of love. And in return, the dogs gave something no other creature could: absolute, unwavering presence. They did not judge, they did not betray, they did not abandon. When empires rose and fell, when cities burned and new ones rose from the ashes, when languages changed and gods were renamed, the dogs remained, loyal through every catastrophe, every migration, every triumph. As the sun sets on this vast panorama of the ancient world, let us linger one final moment in the collective memory. Feel the cool night air of the steppe, hear the distant lowing of reindeer, smell the wood smoke, and there, just at the edge of the firelight, the shadow moves again, not the first wolf this time, but the last ancient dog, its form silhouetted against the stars that have watched this entire epic unfold. It turns its head toward us, eyes glowing softly, and for one heartbeat the 40,000 years collapse into a single, timeless glance of recognition. Then it steps forward, as it always has, into the warmth of human company. This reflection on the living heartbeat of the ancient canine world, its daily intimacies, its training wisdom, its shared hardships and quiet joys, has carried us deeper into the soul of the story than any numbered list alone could reach. The paws that once pressed into mammoth-steppe mud still walk beside us in spirit, their prints visible in every corner of the human past. Yet even now, the final chapter beckons. In the grand finale that awaits, we will gather every thread we have followed into one majestic tapestry, sealing the eternal covenant with words that will echo as long as humanity remembers its first and truest friend. The ancient world of dogs has shown us its deepest heart, the ultimate revelation, and the closing hymn to 40 millennia of loyalty lie just ahead in the concluding part of this immortal documentary. The story that began in ice and fire now prepares to ascend into legend everlasting. The story that began in ice and fire now prepares to ascend into legend everlasting. And here, at the absolute summit of our 10-part odyssey, we stand together on the highest ridge of time itself, gazing backward across 40,000 unbroken years of paw prints pressed into every soil the ancient world ever knew. We have walked the frozen mammoth-steppes where the first wolves chose companionship over fear. We have knelt beside the joint graves of Paleolithic families and their beloved puppies in Bon Oberkassel. We have watched Tessem hounds race beside pharaohs through the reed-choked marshes of the Nile, while Anubis himself smiled down from temple walls. We have heard Argus's final feeble tail thump of recognition after 20 long years in Ithaca, and felt the thunder of Molossian war dogs charging beside Spartan hoplites at Thermopylae. We have seen Salukis fly like wind across Persian plains, Zoloitscuintly guide Aztec souls across the 9 rivers of Mictlan, and sturdy Ulco herd llamas along dizzying Inca trails high in the Andes. We have traced the sacred white temple dogs of Zoroastrian fire altars, the chained guardians barking cave Canaan at Roman villa thresholds, the curled-tail companions curled at the feet of Han emperors, the silent Polynesian Curie sailing thousands of miles in open canoes, and the oracle bone dogs sacrificed in perfect circles beneath Shang Palace foundations. Every single one of the 100 facts we have uncovered has been a single golden thread in an immense tapestry that now unfurls before us in its full, breathtaking glory. Feel it. Feel the weight of those 40 millennia pressing gently upon your shoulders like the warm body of a faithful hound leaning against your leg. Every civilization we visited, Sumerian, Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Persian, Indian, Scythian, Maya, Aztec, Inca, Chinese, Nubian, Celtic, Etruscan, Korean, Japanese, Polynesian, and 100 more whose names have faded into dust, chose the dog as its first and most intimate partner. Not the horse, not the ox, not the falcon or the elephant, but the dog. Why? Because in the dog ancient humanity found something no other creature could give: perfect, unconditional presence. When famine came, the dog ate last or not at all so a child might live. When war came, the dog charged first, armored in bronze or leather, ready to die so its master might see another dawn. When death came, the dog lay down beside the grave and waited, its spirit refusing to cross any bridge or river until its human companion could walk beside it once more. These were not animals in the ancient mind. They were family, they were guardians, they were living prayers, they were the very breath of loyalty made flesh. Imagine now the great chorus rising. Listen, from the ice caves of Belgium 36,000 years ago comes the soft whimper of that first puppy buried with antler tools and red ochre. From the banks of the Nile rises the mournful howl of 8 million mummified dogs wrapped in linen and placed in vast desert necropolises, so Anubis would know they were coming home. From the marble halls of Athens echoes the name Argus spoken in every agora for 800 years. From the Colosseum sand comes the snarling roar of arena mastiffs battling lions while emperors watched in awe. From the high passes of the Hindu Kush drifts the baying of Tibetan mastiff ancestors guarding caravans of lapis and silk. From the jungles of Palenque floats the quiet breathing of a hairless Zolo curled against a dying noblewoman's side, ready to lead her soul through Xibalba. From the yellow-less plains of China sounds the tinkling of bronze bells on 28 dogs arranged in perfect circles around their marquis in his lacquered tomb. From the Pacific waves comes the soft padding of Curie paws on the decks of double-hulled canoes carrying the first Polynesians to new worlds. All these voices, all these howls, all these heartbeats blend into one single, eternal sound that has never stopped and never will. This sound is the true documentary. Not words on clay or stone, not reliefs carved in marble or schist, not even the 100 facts we have recited with such reverence, but the living heartbeat of a relationship older than any empire, deeper than any religion, stronger than any ocean. The dog was there when we first learned to control fire. The dog was there when we planted the first seeds. The dog was there when we built the first cities and wrote the first laws. The dog was there when we sailed into unknown seas and marched across unknown continents. And when the last torch of the last ancient city finally flickered out, the dog was still there, curled at the feet of the dying, waiting patiently for whatever came next. In every language that ever existed, the word for dog carried the same warmth: companion, protector, brother, guardian, friend. In every tomb, in every temple, in every palace, the dog received grave goods, names, prayers, and tears. No other creature in the entire ancient world was granted such universal honor. The horse pulled chariots but was not buried with kings in the same intimate way. The ox plowed fields but was not named and mourned with shaved heads and public lamentation. Only the dog received the full measure of human love, because only the dog returned it without condition, without hesitation, without end. And so we reach the final, overwhelming revelation that binds all 100 facts into one immortal truth. The domestication of the dog was not an event, it was a covenant. It was the moment humanity first understood that survival, joy, and meaning were better shared than hoarded. It was the moment we looked into alien eyes across a campfire and saw not a beast but a mirror of our own longing for loyalty. Every subsequent civilization simply honored that original covenant in its own language, with its own rituals, with its own breeds shaped by its own needs. The Tessem, the Molossian, the Saluki, the Zaloitskuntli, the Ulko, the Curie, the Fangu, the Sagdid, the Lupa, they were all expressions of the same ancient promise made in the Ice Age and kept faithfully for 400 centuries. Now the fire that began in the mammoth-steppe is burning low. The last ancient dog steps forward one final time from the edge of the shadows. Its coat carries the frost of Arctic ice, the golden dust of Persian plains, the red cinnabar of Maya tombs, the bronze filings of Roman forges, the cedar scent of Chinese palaces, the salt spray of Polynesian oceans. It looks at us with eyes that have seen every sunrise humanity has ever known. It wags its tail once, slow, deliberate, eternal. Then it turns and walks back into the mists of time, leaving behind only the warm imprint of its body against our leg and the quiet certainty that wherever humanity goes next, the dog will already be waiting. This has been the complete 10-part documentary of 100 facts about dogs in ancient times. We have traveled from the birth of the bond to its fullest flowering across every continent and every civilization the ancient world ever produced. We have seen the dog as hunter, guardian, healer, warrior, guide, mourner, sacrifice, and God made flesh. We have felt its warm breath on our skin, heard its howl rise with the smoke of 10,000 sacred fires, and known beyond any doubt that humanity's greatest achievement was not the pyramid, not the aqueduct, not the written word, but the simple act of sharing a scrap of meat with a wolf that chose to stay. The ancient world of dogs is now sealed in glory. Its paws have walked beside us for 40,000 years. Its loyalty has outlasted every empire that ever rose or fell, and its legend will howl forever. And now, as this complete 2-hour documentary comes to its majestic close, I ask each and every one of you watching, please let us know in the comments exactly where you are watching this history video from and what time you are watching it right now. Tell us about the theme you are watching from, whether you are in a quiet room at midnight, on a long journey, or gathered with family, and share which part of this ancient canine saga moved you most deeply. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join us for future epic documentaries that will continue to uncover the lost wonders of our shared human past. Your comments, your watches, and your subscriptions keep these ancient voices alive. Thank you for traveling with me across 40,000 years and 100 extraordinary facts. Until the next journey into history, may the spirit of those first ancient dogs walk faithfully beside you always.